I consider this to be the extended version of our day, and this is just to kind of get um, for the people who have time to do a little more than 1 minute. I will just elaborate a little bit on today's topic. Today's topic I was talking about why, understanding the why, and I understand that people in this time are very hurt. The expose of this season is a little bit hard to deal with, to come to grips with. But all these things are reality. They have always existed. And now, in order to respond with a level head and do things that are prudent going forward, I believe that we must understand why we are doing it. Again, I felt that, and the greatest example that I could use was when the Montgomery bus boycott, the people decided, okay, if you're not going to at least give us equity concerning riding a bus, that at the time my understanding is that African Americans were the primary bus users, and that to not be treated fair on that bus, even though they're paying the same price, it was, it's not fair. It's unfair. At the time, I would say it's unlawful, but we know how crazy the laws were at that point. Um, and so they decided what we would do is get together, and for people who have cars, you're going to carpool. Those people use their cars as taxis. The people got together, and when the transit system could not function because they were dependent on those finances, they made a decision to change the laws. And so the people were able to think with a level head because they had a group that was not trumped up on their egos. Modern day, the struggle is there are too many people with all of the egos getting in the way. I want to represent for this person. I want to put my nonprofit organization on. I want to keep mentioning certain people, groups, so many different hidden agendas that it's hard to create a viable working objective. When there's a clear objective, people are able to follow clear objectives. So why have an objective? So that when you get to a place, if there's an objective, that is a location or something that you can achieve. So if I'm walking, my objective is to walk 10 feet. I know that I can step off 10 feet and I will know when I've arrived at that place. And so there have got to be clear objectives. That is why, there should be an objective. For me, and this is kind of bringing it all to a close here, for me, I made a I was determined rather to have optimal health. Why? Because the times with all the stuff that happened recently, all of these lynchings, these murders, and all that stuff, whether people know it or not, I, having grown up in what I consider to be a very tough area of my city, one of the tough areas of my city, feel like people like me often suffer from PTSD before. And I know people say, well, it's so much different when you're in battle. I get it. I get that there is something I can empathize for a soldier, even though I've never been in battle. However, I need people to be able to empathize with individuals who grow up in an area where there's constant shooting, there's constant shouting, everything is loud, loud, loud. For a person who who was not originally there, who came to that space, it definitely can leave some traumatic imprints on your mind. And so I knew that in this season, what I could fully control was my choices, my choice on what I eat. Sometimes with our jobs, although we feel like we are in complete control and have full autonomy, we don't. We've got things that we must do and abide by. Even as a business owner, you have a right to do some things and you have the freedom to do some things, but in just recklessly doing those things, you could lead to a loss of money, and the loss of income could easily mean the loss of your home and your place to stay and people that depend on you. You're going to let them down. So I knew that to be able to make really the best decisions that I possibly could, I needed to have the best health possible and be able to clearly think and see. And in renewing my mind to optimal health, that has also caused me to think, you know what? One thing that I can control is how deep I go in God, like how deep my faith is. Because in Ephesians chapter 3, he talks about he wants us to know the width of him, the length of him, the breadth of him, the depth of him. He wants us to know the height of him. And then now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask to think, according to the power that worketh in you. The power can't work in you when you're not at optimal health. A sickly body is not able to think clearly. So what we do is we say things like, when people approach us about health, we say, well, you got to die of something. Well, if that's, I understand what you're saying, but that's not necessarily true that you have to die of something. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there are people who just sleep away and they say, we don't know, it's just unnatural causes. Oh, no, they died of natural causes. Right. So if that's what we're using as our premise, well, we got to die of something, why don't you just go jump off a bridge now? You know why? Because you like life. You want to live. Just say you want to do what you want to do, because basically what it is it's our appetites. Our bellies become our gods. Our appetite becomes our God. We're led and driven by what we want and desire. And we have to recapture or take charge of our desires. And when we control them, it's like going in the store, looking at something, saying, I could buy that, but I'm not going to, just because I am taking charge and I'm not allowing my appetite to drive me and to lead me. I'm taking control of it. So optimal health, part of the why I wanted optimal health, because I want to live longer. I want to be able to think clearly. I want to go deeper in God. And a part of doing it is my responsibility is to take care of my temple. My body is my temple, and I must take care of it. For me, it's spiritual. This is a personal conviction that I am not preaching that everyone, like that you follow what I'm doing. Like, I started in January as wanting to just go, I wanted to go straight vegan, but that was quite the challenge. So I started off no meat, straight up no meat, but would occasionally do cheats with cheese and stuff like that. Now I'm ramping it up more because I see that I clearly have sugar addiction. I think a large amount of humans have sugar addictions. And so I'm going to juice. My plan is to go 30 days and I'm going to actually vlog about it so people can see the process. I'm going to actually weigh myself and things of that such so people can see, and we'll talk about the results of it later. But optimal health so that I could think clearly, make good decisions, and get closer to God. Because when your flesh is challenged, the only route, the only way to overcome it is it has to be you and God. It has to be you and God. So that's my spiel, and I hope that everybody understands. Just understand the why. We have to be more deliberate about our actions. And our actions, we got to understand the why instead of just taking off like, I'm going to go protest because it's the right thing to do. But then if someone were to pull you aside and say, okay, I'm going to do everything you want, go. What do you want me to do? And you don't know, and the best thing you can say is there need to be laws against this. Okay, what do the current laws say? See, there needs to be a little bit more research done on the front end, because once you start down that journey to the objective, you got to know once you have arrived at a place. How will you know you're there without knowing why? Like, why am I doing this? Okay, so once I know why, I'll know when I've achieved. That's all I got.